We're just starting the webinar. Going to give it a minute for everyone to log in, and then we'll get going. Hi, welcome to our webinar on how to get the most out of Formlab Black. My name is Will Wild. I'm the head trader here at Football Formlabs. I've shared my screen, so hopefully you can see it. To see it as clearly as possible, if you expand the video to full screen and choose the highest quality available, you should be able to see it pretty clearly. We're going to split the webinar up into 3 distinct sections. Firstly, I'm going to give a brief overview of the software by going through the tabs at the top. Secondly, I'll show you how to use the software to analyze a Premier League match. First off, apologies to West Brom and Watford fans, but we've chosen the slightly bigger game between City and Chelsea for this demonstration. After the preview, we're going to answer any questions you've got on the software. If you've got any questions during the webinar, you can tweet us at Football Formlab or just post any questions to this YouTube page. Don't worry if you need to rush off. We know it's Friday evening and you might have better things to do. All of the videos will remain on this YouTube page for reference at any time in the future. Over the next couple of months, we're planning to run more webinars on individual aspects of the software, particularly players and live logic for Formula Black subscribers who might not have used that part of the software yet. So moving on, once you've logged into Formula Black, you can see on the top left we've got a tab called Daily Reports. Daily Reports we use to publish all of the editorial we write for our subscribers. If you use the navigation bar on the left and click week 33 and today's date, Friday the 14th of August, you'll load up the reports. On the left hand side we have featured matches. These are the recommendations that we put out and the profit and loss that we track for the strongest bets that come up. Today we've got 3 recommendations. The first game is finished already. We were on under 2.0 goals in Amkar versus Anzi in Russia. Pretty unlucky game actually. We were on unders. It was 0-0 at half time. There were 2 goals in the space of 3 minutes. And the game finished 1-1, so it was a push for our subscribers. We've got 2 other matches, Alsund against Stromsgodset, which is in play at the moment, and an over goals tip in Cork versus Limerick in the Irish division later on. On the right side, we have a slightly different analysis. So on the top right, we've got a link to our Premier League preview 2015-16. This is by far our biggest preview ever, something like 25,000 words, including a team-by-team analysis on every team's strength and weakness. Going a bit lower, you can see we've got this is our significant players missing from games that are going on today. We've looked here at how important Marco Barca is to Lille and how Bilbao are likely to be affected by Munain's prolonged absence from a knee injury. Scrolling down, we've also added Ligue 1, Ligue 1 team previews, and we've given an example of Angers there. And you can scroll down and see all of the other teams with Ligue 1 full analysis. That's pretty much everything we have on our daily reports. You can log in at any time and see. Just been told that Alsund are 1-0 up, which is a great start to our second recommendation of the day. We've got them plus quarter ball on the Asian handicap, so should be getting at least half a win out of that. Famous last words, maybe. On the left side of the daily report screen, you'll see a profit and loss link. If you click on that, you can see the breakdown of all of the daily reports that we've posted on Formlabs. At the top, you'll see that we've staked over 3,400 points. We use a standard staking system, so every bet is 1 point. Last season, for the 2014-15 season, we returned 7% on every bet that we placed. If we can do something like that again this season, we'll be very happy, and I'm sure our subscribers will again. Moving across onto the Game Notes tab. Sometimes I have to log in here, this will remember you. Here, what we have is text output for a strong market in every game that we cover. It's filtered on leagues or market. If we go leagues, then Premier League, you'll see all of the games this weekend and a strong market in there. If we read the top one for tonight's game, you can see that Man United have drawn the first half in 10 of 15 away matches, and they've been under 2.5 goals in 8 of their last 12 away matches. Villa have conceded first in 6 of their last 10 matches against home teams. So a stat that's put out on every game that gives you maybe a slight indicator of how you want to bet. If you toggle to markets, you could filter on 8 main markets here. If we go for over 2.5 goals, this will be in chronological order. The next time we've got a strong game note for over 2.5 goals. So with game that come up tonight, Warwick versus Sparta Rotterdam in the Eerste Divisie, Holland. There's a lot of goals in the second division in Holland, and we think there could be a lot of goals in that. Moving quickly on to match data. This is a very interesting tab, and the one that you go straight to when you open up Formlabs. In the top right-hand corner, you've got drop-downs for filtering between leagues. We currently cover around 50 leagues, so you can find strong trends in hundreds of matches each week. In the form tables on the top left, you can see how teams rank in different markets. The standard is a league table. Obviously, a league table isn't too interesting after the first game of the season, despite what the media might tell you. If you click on the drop down and select, let's go for team goals. Here you can see many markets across the top that you can filter on. If we go to BS, which would be both teams to score, this is every team in the Premier League, their last 20 games. For promoted teams, we use, based on their performance so far this season, how other promoted teams have done. But if we click on BS, this filters on both teams to score. If we click on it again, it does it ascending. We can see that no team has had more both teams to score games in their last 20 league games than Crystal Palace, who have had 12. Now, it's a sort of stat that is not going to come up straight away out the top of your head. Palace have looked very good going forward towards the last end of last season, but they're clearly conceding a lot of goals as well. A tip for using Formlabs generally is that if you hover over anything that you don't quite understand, so if we go over SL here, you'll see that scored last pops up. This just to give you some hints of how to use the software. So if you use it on any of the key indicators, you can see that it will tell you how many of these have occurred out of the sample size and what the profitability would be for this draw profitability one. Another tip of how to use the software is anytime you see I, so we have an I here on team goals, it will give you a tooltip on some guidance on how to use the software. You see them all over the page, so we have them bottom right here for top 3 indicators, and here we've just these are going to stay on the software for forever, so a constant way you can check in and just get some more guidance. The 4th and 5th tabs on Formlab are pre-match query and in-play query. We're going to come back to them when we go into our preview of the Chelsea City game. Anytime you generate a query in either of those outputs, it's displayed on the query output tab. There are the tabs that you get in Formlab Max. For Formlab Black subscribers, you get an additional 2 tabs, which are Players and Live Logic. The Players tab, in Ronseal-esque fashion, is where you can query on individual or a combination of players and their effectiveness on their team's performance when they've either played or missed matches. The Players tab, by clicking on it, opens up a new tab, which is quite handy, so you can just go back to the usual query page by clicking across. You don't have to reload it. What we've set up here is a query on Man City. This season and last is highlighted in the period column. Selection, we've gone for all rather than home or away. Opposition type, we're looking at all. And we're looking at players in the current squad. You can include former players if you want. In the when played query, we've said they have to start the match, which naturally means they have to have played at least one minute in the game. If you click here, it will refresh the data below. If you click on PVT percentage, you can see which players have been the most effective or the least effective in the games they've played. Now, this is sorted on PVT percent descending, And the idea is that the player at the top has had the most significance when they've played. Now, you're going to get a few players that haven't played a large amount in this sample. So Caballero has only played 3 games. We're not too interested in him. Boney only started 3 games after he joined from Swansea last year. But right at the bottom, so the least effective player we have on here is Kompany, which is very interesting. If you click and to open up the Kompany link, it's not going to show it on your screen here, but you can see it up. And the key stat that we've got here is that this season and last season, when Kompany has started for City, you can see that 4 of the last games that he has started, City have lost, and yet they've won the last 7 where he hasn't started. A lot of that was to do with the good run at the end of last season, but it shows that sometimes players aren't quite as effective as maybe they're perceived to be. We're actually pretty confident that Kompany is going to have a return to form after a poor season last season, but that really indicates that he really did drop off last year, as probably rushed back too quickly from an injury and lost a little bit of pace. If we go back to our main screen for Formula Black, the next tab is Live Logic. If you haven't used Live Logic before, Live Logic gives in-play updates every 5 minutes or whenever a goal is scored in every match we cover. All of the updates are based on the current situation in the match. So if we look here, the first one we've got a game in the Czech Republic called Teplice and Plzeň. Plzeň are 2-1 up after 53 minutes. And you can see here that the last update was at 50 minutes when a team trailed by Teplice trailed by 1. What we can see is that Teplice have won 2 of their last 5 games in this situation before. So it's reasonably encouraging for Teplice backers that they're 2-1 down. But they could come back. Now, Plzeň aren't necessarily a bottom half team at the moment because it's early in the season. We're classing them as a bottom half team. If we scroll down, we've got live games going on in the Zweite Bundesliga. And a bit further down, we've got the game that I mentioned earlier, which was our daily report, Aalsund versus Strømsgodset. You can see here it's nearly half-time. The last update was when Aalsund were 1-0 up after 40 minutes. And in this situation, Strømsgodset, for those not au fait with the Tippeligaen, they're a very strong team in Norway, but Aalsund have won 5 of their last 10 home matches against similarly strong teams when they've led by 1 in this situation. So again, it backs up that we're pretty confident going into the last game. As you scroll up, you can see that these games have just flashed red. That's because we've got an update. You see here, rather than Teplice trailing by 1 at 50 minutes, it's now trailed by 1 at 55 minutes. It's just what it looks like when a goal is scored or whenever we get a 5-minute update. In the top right-hand side, you can see a button called Live Logic Alerts. If you click on this, this allows the user to set up customizable in-play bet prompts where you can set your own alerts to be informed when a certain situation occurs in each match. You can set these alerts up by clicking the alert. You can select the leagues you want, the market you might be interested in, and how strongly the in-play update has to be for it to come up on your screen. Here I've set up an example where we're looking at games that are 0-0, where it's strong for the home team to have a greater than 50% win record in their past games. Here we can see that it's based on a all-team query, so top half relegated teams have won 59% of their home games against top 6 teams. So that alert occurred after 5 minutes when it was 0-0 in the German Bundesliga 2. Okay, so one last tab. You can see strategies on the main page. If you click on that, you get 2 choices. You can either go to Formlab strategies or user guides. On the user guides, we just start at the bottom there. As you might expect, user guides of how to get the most out of the product. On there, we've got videos, and then we've also different PDFs of strategies that we've used on the other link here. You can see all of the past previews that we've done. For instance, you can see our World Cup 2014 World Cup preview, which was an editorial piece where we suggested an Argentina-Germany final at 15.0. We don't get them right that often, but that was a particular highlight. So that covers the software and all of the tabs that you might not have used yet as a new user. We're going to move on now to showing how we preview a game. And we're pretty fortunate this week that we've got such a big game in the Prem. between Man City and Chelsea. Big movement over the last week after the first round of fixtures, probably an overreaction, but City were very impressive against West Ham. Against West Brom, although not quite sure why West Brom were playing two up front against City. Probably a game that they didn't think they'd get too much out of, and then they're going to start their season this week. The first place to start on a query for any match is choosing the right game. So at the moment we've got Aston Villa Man United because that's the first game that's kicking off. But if we just click on the drop down, we can quickly go to Man City versus Chelsea. We click on pre-match query. So where we start the main analysis. The standard query on pre-match query is to highlight last 10 games and be home for the home team and away for the away team. If we just do a simple query, so since the start of last season, Man City home, Chelsea away, and click generate, you can see here this brings you a summary of those two results. So obviously both teams played in the opposite place last week, so they haven't played any. So Man City haven't played any home games yet this season. We can see here that City had, of their 19 games last season, they won 14 at home. In the summary above, you can actually see that that would have resulted in a profit of 0.8 points had you placed one unit on every game. So despite City obviously being a very short price at home most weeks, it would have still been profitable to back them to win every game. If you'd have backed their opponents, you'd have had a losing strategy. They lost twice at Stoke and Arsenal. These are based on average odds of about 30 bookmakers 15 minutes before the kickoff. On the summary itself, the default is match outcome. You can also choose match goals, which give you a breakdown of the split of over and under goals. So City had 9 under 2.5 goals last season. In the 19 home games, 10 overs. Just 8 of the games had both teams to score. Half-time, full-time, as you'd expect. They've got a very strong win-win double record. And if you look below, you can see that actually they were much stronger towards the end of the second half of last season at home. All of their last 7 home wins were by win-win. They scored, and 6 of those wins were by at least 2 goals. Obviously, this game against Chelsea is a much more. It wouldn't be fair to compare City against West Brom or Leicester or Newcastle last year when they won comfortably to 0 to playing against the best team last season in Chelsea. So just a quick look at Chelsea's away record last season. They lost just 3 games. One of them was in a game that didn't matter, the West Brom game when Fabregas stupidly got sent off for kicking the ball back towards the ref and the opposition players. And actually, that freak game against Spurs really does stand out. I think it's pretty easy to say that their whole season, it's probably not a fair reflection on what this game's going to be like. So if we go back to pre-match query, we can narrow down looking at the games that might be more relevant. We go back 5 seasons here. So in this game, we know there are obviously going to be 2 strong teams. So if we have a look at how they've done against top 6 finishers over the last 5 seasons, and we're going to change the query from home for Man City to all. So this will give both City and Chelsea's all games. You can see they both played 50 games against fellow top 6 finishers, where they both finished in the top 6 in each of the last 5 seasons. You can see that City actually have a better record than Chelsea. They've won half of their games, whereas Chelsea have won slightly less than half. With the queries that we show on here, there's a trade-off between how far you want to go back to get a sufficient sample size and how far in the past the data is actually relevant. If we change it just to home for Man City, because they've got a fantastic record against top 6 teams in that they've won 17 of their 25 games. But scrolling down, a lot of the wins came in their successful seasons, winning the league, which obviously they might win it this year. Last year they won 3 of their 5 against top 6 finishers, which is pretty impressive. Spurs and Liverpool obviously were a lot weaker than Chelsea and Arsenal were last year. Looking at on Chelsea's side, we can see that they've won just 8 of their 25 trips to top 6 finishers, and won just once last season. If we look on match goals, we can see that City's games tend to be higher scoring than Chelsea's. But obviously, a big change to Chelsea was Mourinho's return. If we look down the bottom here, we can see that there's a lot more goals before he joined and than when he joined. Now, to look at those, I think it's certainly fair to say that Chelsea are a different team under Mourinho. Mourinho certainly has tried and tested tactics against the bigger teams. We can filter on the spell that Mourinho's been at Chelsea. It's been 77 games since he joined, so 2 seasons plus last week's 2-2 draw. If you click current manager on pre-match query, and then click generate, and we can do it for Pellegrini, who's been there for the same amount of time. So it's quite an interesting query. It's just going to bring up since when they've been at the club. So now we can see actually that Chelsea have a better record than City do. If we again just look at on home matches, we can see that at home Pellegrini has still been very strong in the big games, and had a 1-1 with Chelsea last year, but lost to Chelsea the year before. So while he's done very well in the other matches, he's got a pretty poor record against Mourinho. If we look at Chelsea away in that time, we can see that Chelsea have only lost 2. 5 of the games have been drawn. Looking at them quickly, I mean, the 5-3 against Spurs really does stand out. Anyone that saw that game will back up the theory that it certainly wasn't a normal game. If we click on match goals, this is probably the strongest stat you're going to find in this game. That while on the left side for City, we've got 6 of their 10 games have had over 2.5 goals. We can see within that sample that the 2 games against Chelsea last season, they drew 1-1. The year before, they lost 1-0. The main stat in here, it's a Mourinho team in a big game. How does he do in those big games? 8 of the 10 have had under 2.5 goals. The 2 that didn't were against Spurs and Liverpool last year. They weren't that big a game. All of his games against Arsenal, Man City, and Man United on the road since he joined have had under 2.5 goals. And we can see that 4 of the games had under 1.5 goals. Mourinho doesn't need a classic here. He's going to be very happy with a 0-0 or a 1-0 win. Another thing that stands out on the right side is that last season Chelsea were level at half time in 4 of the 5 matches against the fellow top 6 finishers. With in-play query, you can carry forward any of the pre-match filters you put in. So if we click on in-play query, we can see that already what we have ticked is finishing against top six teams. We can choose to have that on or off. So we're going to take that off for now. We're going to say at half time, it does the same query for both teams. We're going to say over the past since the 2 teams joined, how have they done when they've been drawing at half time? Only looking at home and away games, not treating this as if it might be a game at Stamford Bridge. You can see here there have been 10 games where City have been level at half time, and in those games they've actually kicked on to do very well. They've won 8 of the matches. Chelsea, on the other hand, you can see that we still actually, if you see on the top right, we still actually have the finishing versus top 6 on. That 5 of the times they've been level at half time against top 6 teams, they actually gone on to draw the game. If we take off that filter, we have to go back to in-play query, untick the versus finishing top 6 teams, click generate, populates the query. Home and away for Chelsea in that situation. We're only interested in their away games. Filter on there. We've got 19 occasions where Chelsea have been level at half time on the road under Mourinho's current spell, and their record is 1-7, drawn 7, lost 5. It's not a great record, but it shows that it's still pretty tough to beat. So we kind of lean in this game to a match where there's not going to be too many goals in the game. If we go to the Players tab, which we were looking at before, we're still on Man City. I want to change this to Liverpool, and we're going to click seasons 10 to 11. We're going to go venue, we're going to go home, and we're going to include former players, and we want them to have started the game and played at least 60 minutes. We click generate query here. You see here, this is all of the players that are either currently at Liverpool or have played for Liverpool over the past 5 seasons. As you might guess, we want to look at Sterling here. What I've done there is filtered on player, just so it's easy to pick out Raheem Sterling here. What it shows here, of the applicable games when he was at Liverpool, he only actually started and played 60 minutes in 38 of a total of, 95 games. 105 games. 95 games. It was right. If we click here, if you click there on your own screen, you can see that of the games that he started, Sterling, Liverpool won 28 of the 38 games when he started and played at least 60 minutes. So we can see what an effect he had on the team. They did better when he started, as you'd hope to see, but it was still a losing strategy backing Liverpool in the games when Sterling started. If we go back to pre-match query again on our main screen. Just wait for that to load up. I'm going to do. Just going to open that on a different screen. I've hit a bit of a slow internet. So. Okay, looking at back to pre-match query. At the bottom, they've got a button called head-to-head next to generate. By clicking that, you just get all the games that Chelsea and Man City have played over the past 5 seasons. So this is obviously includes the games pre-Pellegrini and pre-Mourinho. The striking stat here is that 8 of the 10 games have been level at half-time. Of those games, 3 have gone on to be a draw at full time as well. So 3 draw doubles. The draw double this weekend is around 9-2 in a game that looks like it's going to be cagey. It's a much bigger game. They don't want to lose these games. So I think the way that we're thinking going into this game, I think it's definitely got a sign for under 2.5 goals. It's available at 10 to 11, and it's very difficult to see why a game for Mourinho in a big game should be so close on the 2.5 line in Asia. We definitely lean to it being a 2.25 line, and under goals at 10 to 11 is the standout selection for us. So it's just an example of some of the queries you can do in Formlabs for any of the matches that we cover. We're going to go next on to any questions that you might have from the software. So we had, if anyone has got in touch on Twitter, I'm just going to load that on another screen. Had a query from Mick Cunningham. Hi, Mick. Currently on Formlab Max, if you get a chance, are you able to look at pre-match moves? E.g. United are 1.75. Can Formlabs help in the way that we think the price will move? Well, I think we can. I think what you can do with Formlabs is you can work out a price that you think a market should be. And to do that, you can use a mixture of past performance. And if you estimate your price, you can watch the market and see if it goes in your favor. It's very difficult to predict exactly where the market's going to move. But if we have a look at that game later on today, we think there's a certain trend for under goals, and you want to look at there at Man United at 1.95. A lot of the pre-match movements are about player information and team lineups. So just going to look for if we have any significant team news for the game kicking off in 45 minutes. We can see here that United have gone with the same 11 as last week. It's pretty similar to me. Obviously, no De Gea in the. Okay. Yeah. So just been told that the under goals price in the Chelsea game has come in a lot, and we certainly just see that as justification. We think that even at 1.83, it's still a back. So the opening line 1.91 shows that you can get some good value if you log in early. A key thing that we found in the Man United game was that under Louis van Gaal, United have got a very low scoring record on the road. We just opened up a query there, pre-match query under Van Gaal, how United have done. If we strip out the game against Leicester, that United actually lost 5-3, Januzaj starts. We can see that the only time that Man United scored more than 2 goals last season was in that game against Leicester, which is pretty rare for a team that's considered to be a strong team. They won just 6 of the games. Looking at their wins, they only once beat the Asian handicap by. They only once won by 2 or more goals. The line today is -3/4 ball. Just looks too skinny for Man United this early in the season. They lacking pace in the middle. Januzaj in for Ashley Young. So if we go and have a look at on the players tab, Ashley Young's an interesting one. He's obviously just got a new contract for Man United, and Januzaj looked like he might be going. If we seasons 10 to 11, Man United playing away, started and played at least 60 minutes. Get a query on the right side. If we click on the player, let's get rid of we don't need former players, so we untick that to make it a bit cleaner. If we click on the player summary, what this gives you is an idea of over that time period, just who's been the key player. And if we click on number of goals scored, we can see that by a long way, Rooney is clear of anyone else. And actually, Hernandez, who was on loan at Madrid last year for a season, is still the second highest goal scorer in that squad. Ashley Young, despite playing in a defensive position for lots of that time, with 4 goals, he's actually 5th on the list. If we look at how many times he started in that 76 game sample, you can see that goal for Stromgodset, an equaliser. We definitely jinxed that by mentioning that bet was safe. So I'm getting some pretty bad looks in the office. You can see here that Young started 30 of the 76 games. If we actually change the query to this season and last season, and then look at who's been the most popular player, we can see that he's actually only started 10 of the 18 away games. 10 of the 19 away games. De Gea only missed one of the away games last year, but he's been a regular player in the squad. And this is looking down it. We can actually see that our query here is to have started and played at least 3 games, and Januzaj isn't in the list, so it shows that this is probably one of his rare starts away from home under Van Gaal. Click on Januzaj. He started just 2 games away from home at pretty weak opponents. Apologies again to West Brom fans and West Ham fans, but Man United failed to win both of those games last season. We can do a bit of analysis there. Where do we think the price is going to go? I think that United are a little bit skinny to win this game at -3/4 ball. I think they should probably be maybe 1.85 to win the game. With Van Gaal's under goals record, we're actually putting it against Sherwood's over goals record, but Villa have obviously lost Benteke in the summer transfer window, and while they got a win at Bournemouth last week, they didn't look particularly impressive. I think it's going to be a low scoring draw. 1-1 is going to be the score today. That ties up our preview for the webinar for tonight. For this season, we've partnered with Oddschecker, and we're supplying them with editorial previews for all live Premier League games, a weekly summary of all 3 p.m. kickoffs, and select European and international games. To see any of our previews for this weekend's games, just head over to Oddschecker, click tips, and then football. You can see all of our previews there. Thank you for joining me on this webinar. If there are any questions that you've got in the future, you can tweet them directly to us at Football Form Lab. You can email us at support@footballformlabs.com, and one of the analysts here will get back to you. We look forward to doing more of these in the future, and we're going to do some individual webinars on players and Live Logic in the near future. Thanks again. Best of luck with your bets over the weekend. Be lucky.